who I am.
Dracula Untold for Universal intends to do what the first Iron Man did for Marvel. Kick off this whole interconnected Universal monster reboot series. So we're talking Dracula, we're talking the Mummy, we're talking the Invisible Man, we're talking Frankenstein, we're talking Son of Frankenstein, we're talking the Ghost of Frankenstein. That's right, we might finally get that Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein team-up movie that we've all been craving. But this is still early days, of course. I wouldn't bank on any of this happening just yet, especially considering Universal's recent strategy of trotting out a monster reboot every couple of years to a resounding Nevertheless, here we are again, X-Men Dracula Dracula Untold, a retelling of the infamous legend of Dracula and the man he was prior to being that thing. The story goes thusly. Our title character, played very well by Luke Evans, I gotta say, is forced to call on some dark and sinister forces in order to save his people, his wife, and his child. This idiot loves his family so bloody much that he's willing to turn himself into a Dracula to save them. And turning yourself into a Dracula is one of the worst life decisions that a person can make. First off, kudos, Dracula Untold, for not setting yourself in the modern day. Cause you know what I'm sick of? Sexy modern day vampire films. Ugh, no thank you. All that leather and new metal and that always inevitable scene in a nightclub that's clearly full of Draculas, but nobody seems to notice that there's Draculas everywhere. It's like wall-to-wall Draculas. If you throw a rock in any direction, you're gonna hit a Dracula. This movie instead opts to set itself in a kind of vague period in pseudo-history, and the whole thing is a piece more akin to that Underworld prequel that I don't really remember than anything else. Now, despite the critical trouncing that this movie is getting, Dracula Untold is fine. That is, if you go in it from the perspective that this is not your sexy modern day Dracula or your Bram Stoker's Dracula with his blood and its gore and seduction and weird Keanu Reeves British accent.
I know where the bastard sleeps. I brought him there. To Carfax Abbey.
But more, your kind of standard action affair. Dracula here is portrayed as this kind of anti-hero, and although he keeps referring to himself as a monster, he really isn't. It's made clear that the killing he's done in his life was more out of necessity than anything else. And the idea here is that he's a more sympathetic character than what we're used to seeing Dracula being. So if you can get past that, this is an okay time at the movies. I certainly wouldn't highly recommend it. It's pretty paint by numbers as far as the plot goes, and the action sequences are serviceable at best. And the bad guy plays like some stock villain from a Prince of Persia game. But like I said, Luke Evans does a good job with his material. Plus there are some clever uses of vampire mythology, specifically how they work in his weakness to silver, and that bit where he uses a giant fist of bats and he like punches an army. That's pretty good. So although I wouldn't say this is highly recommended, it is not as bad as you may have heard, especially if you like your Dracula more sympathetic and in a fairly gore-free universe. It will be interesting, however, to see what Universal will do next with these characters, if anything at all. Probably something with sexy, sympathetic mummies? I don't know. Who cares? Thanks, everyone, and don't forget new videos here every Thursday and Sunday. And if you like this, feel free to check out my podcast, The Weekly Planet. People who like movies seem to like it. I'll link that below if you are interested. And also thank you to those who have been voting for me on that Watch Mojo top critics list. If you like to help out there, I've also linked that below. But no pressure at all, whatever. So have you seen Dracula Untold, and did you enjoy it? And also, what is your favorite all-time vampire movie? You can leave your thoughts below via my Twitter and Facebook pages, both ending in Mr. Sunday Movies, if you have anything to say about that. Thanks everyone. Take care.